Welcome to channel Qautomation. In previous sessions, so far we have seen multiple type of strategies to locate element, for example using CSS selector, using XPath, using unique property of element, and we have also seen how to use a text to find out locator. In the examples which we have seen so far, we have located single web element. But in test automation, there can be scenarios where we also want to capture multiple web elements in single XPath. One of the example I can give you is, let's say I have one commerce page. So this is demo.nopcommerce.com, and in this web page we have cell phone section. Now my requirement is I want to print name of all the mobiles present on this page. How many mobiles are present currently? 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So I want to print name of every mobile present on this web page. Now there are 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Total 5 mobiles are present. So I want to print 5 names of these mobiles. So I want to capture all these mobile names. So in such situation we have to find out a next path which will be pointing to all these 5 names. So now let's try to find out that XPath. So what I will do, I will simply open this inspect element. Let's select one of the name. If you see, everything is present in which tag? Anchor tag. It is present inside h2 tag. And if you see, what is the class name here? Product hyphen item. So I will try to write an XPath from this portion. So what I will do, inside this div, I will go to h2, because if I only use anchor tags, then there can be multiple links. So let me just show you. So I'm just pressing Ctrl F. Let's try to write XPath, relative XPath. So I'm using div tag, or let's say first, let's just try to use anchor tag. So inside div there are multiple anchor links are present. So we cannot use directly only anchor tag in this case. So again, let's highlight this name. This anchor tag is present inside h2 tag. So let's use h2 as well. So inside this div, 2 times slash, and then I'm using h2. Yeah, this XPath can capture now. So if you see, this XPath is now pointing to all these 5 names. If you see, you can write the XPath in multiple ways. I can similarly write this XPath like this also. This is also correct one. It is also highlighting all the 5 name of mobiles. If you want to write something different, then we can also write this as well. So if I take class name, so what I will do, I will just write 2 times. So inside this 2 times slashes, after that I am writing div tag. After that, let's say I am putting @class equals to product hyphen item. Inside this there is h2 tag, and inside h2 all the anchor tags. So these are basically highlighting all the 5 names of mobile pages. So now this XPath is pointing to how many elements? Total 5. So it is used to capture total 5 elements. That is the name of mobile phones. So I am just going to use this XPath, and I want to print all the 5 names in my console. So how to perform this action? So now let's see practically. So inside this test, I will create a new file. I will just name it as multiple elements dot spec.js. So we have created one file. Now inside this, what is the first step? We are going to define constant in which we need test comma expect module equal to require @playwright hyphen test. So from these modules we are importing test and expect functions. That is our syntax of our Playwright. We have seen why we have to use those in our previous sessions as well. After that, we have to use test block. Inside this test block, first parameter is we have to pass name. So I am just showing you multiple elements demo. That is the name of our test. After that we have to define one anonymous function. So this is the syntax for anonymous function. This is the anonymous function in which we have to pass page fixture, or we can say a page object. This is going to be a async. That's it. Now we can simply use our first line, that is await page dot go to the URL of the web page where we want to go. So I will directly use this URL, so it will open this web page where all the phones are present. So I'm just passing that URL here. So this step will launch the browser and it will open this web page. Now once this web page is opened, next step is we want to capture and store all the names in one element. So in case of multiple elements, how we can do it? So we can do it by two ways. So there are two approaches we can use. First approach is by using locator method, and second approach is by using page dot to dollar signs. So that I will just explain you in some time, but just try. Let's see the first approach using locator method. So what I will do, so this statement is going to open this specific web page. After opening this web page, we are going to use locator method. So what I will do, I am going to define, let's say, one element, const elements equals to await page dot locator method, and inside this I will pass that locator. So I am going to pass the XPath which we have created here. It is basically highlighting all the names of mobile phones. If you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I am just going to use this XPath and use it here. I am just putting it in double quotes here. So this XPath is capturing all the 5 elements, and that we are storing in this elements constant. Now it will be stored in elements constant. Now from those locators, now we have to use a for loop. Before using even for loop, I want to find out count of, so this XPath is now pointing to multiple web elements. It is not pointing to single web element. It is pointing to multiple web elements, and if I see how many elements are there, I can do like this. So I am just defining one's constant, let's say count of elements equals to, so we have one method, that is, if you use now elements dot count, so this will give you count of all the elements which are present in this elements object. In this elements object, how many total XPath, or we can say how many total elements are there part of this elements object, that we can get it by using elements dot count method. So this will return the count, and if I print now console.log, count is, or we can directly print count of elements. So now I am just saving this file, and let's execute this file just to see what is the count of those elements. So how to execute the file? npx playwright test. What is the file name? Multiple elements .spec.js project equals to Chromium, and we have to see it in headed mode. So now let's execute this. So it should print the count of those elements. So it should print total count as 5 now. We are just verifying whether it is correctly capturing those elements and it is printing those counts or not. So it will launch the test case. It is taking some time. So let's see whether we have, okay, so there is small spelling mistake in our command. So I'm just going to correct this spelling mistake. So instead of elements, we have to put one spelling mistake here. Yeah, now execute the command. So now it will launch the browser and it will open this web page. It will capture this XPath and all the elements associated with this XPath. So total 5. So all those 5 will be stored in this elements object. And we are now printing that count by using count method which we are using here. So now let's see the output. If you see the count here, it has printed the count. So total count is 5. So count is given correctly. Now our next step. So we don't need this step now. So I'm just going to comment this. So now what we can do, we have the count of elements present in this elements object. After that we have to now use for loop. So now we can use for loop to iterate through and we can extract the text from those object. So what I want to do is, in JavaScript we can use for loop like this. So we have to use for loop. In this I am just going to use let I starting with 0. Value of I should be less than count of elements. So it will iterate from 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Total currently it is having 5 elements. So whatever is the count, let's say there can be a 10 mobile phones. So it will start from 0 to up to 10. So from 0 to 9, we are putting the condition as I is less than count of element. This is a standard for loop which we are using. And then we have to increase the for loop counter. And in this body of for loop, what we have to do is, I am going to define one more constant. So what I am going to do is, for every, so in first iteration we want 0th element, for next iteration we want first element, for next iteration we want second element, and so on up to it reaches to the final count of those element. It will iterate up to from 0 to 9. So it will iterate for 10 times. Whatever is the number of elements which are present there. So count currently is, what is the count currently? It is 5. So it will iterate from 0 to fourth element. 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Total 5 elements are there. But index will start from 0. So we are putting it I as a 0. And then what we are going to do is, from this elements object, we are going to use this method. So I want to extract the text, right? But from which element, that also we have to provide. So what I will do, I will just create one constant. Let's say constant, let's say name underscore mobile. This is a constant text I am defining, which will store what it will store. It will store elements dot, there is a method nth. It will capture that specific index. So I want to iterate from 0 to 4. So it will be I here. So nth index of I. So what it will do, in first iteration I value will be 0. So it will capture from this elements dot nth of 0. That means first element. 0 means first element of this elements object, and from that element we want to capture the text. So we have one method called text content. So in Selenium we have get text. Similarly in Playwright we can use dot text content method to fetch the text from that element. That locator, it will fetch the text content. So in first iteration it will capture the 0th element from this object. It will capture the text. It will store in this constant, that is name underscore mobile. And if you simply print this, it will print that value. So I want to print name underscore mobile. So it will print the name of that mobile. So this is how we can use. So now what will happen? I can simply use await here, since we are using the methods here. So we have to use await statement whenever we are going to use any methods. So now what we can do, we can execute this and we can see whether it is printing the names correctly or not. So now let's execute this file. It is starting the execution. It is launching the browser. It will open that web page directly in which cell phones are there, and it has closed. Now something error is there. Now let's see what is the error it is showing. Okay, so we have made a silly mistake. We have used print statement, but in JavaScript we have to use console.log. Okay, so now I am just saving this and let's execute the file one more time. Let's execute the same file again. So it has started the test execution. It is launching the web page. It will open the cell phones page from this website. There are total 5 mobile numbers. Now if you see in our console, it is correctly printing all the 5 names. If you see 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And these are the names of these mobile phones. First one, second one, third one, fourth one and fifth one. So this is how we can capture the multiple web elements. So we have to first find out the locator. We can use any locator, but condition is it should correctly capture all those web elements which we are intended to capture. So if you want to capture those elements, we have to write a next path first, which will point to all those elements. Then we have stored it in elements object. In locator elements object, it is stored. We can also check the count by using dot count method. So it has given us the output of 5. So total count was 5 in our case. And then we have to use for loop. So in for loop, we have to iterate through all the elements one by one by index wise. So what we have done, we have iterated through all the elements one by one for 0th index, for first index, second, third, fourth and fifth, so on. And then what we have done, then we have printed the value. So we have to use dot text content method, and using dot text content method and using this dot nth method, it will capture 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Total 5 elements it will capture, and it will get the text content from those elements. And then we are simply printing those by using console.log. So let me clear this and let's execute one more time. So I am executing the same code one more time. It is starting our test case. If you see, it is correctly printing all the 5 names. So this is approach 1 by using locator method and by using for loop. So what we have done, we have first find out the locator which will capture all those elements. Then by using for loop, we have iterated and we have captured the text content from that objects. index wise 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 so far. So this is the first approach. Now there is one more approach by which we can simply capture multiple web elements in Playwright. So first one we have already seen. Next one is by using this statement, that is await page dot 2 times this dollar sign, and in which we have to pass the locator. So in this, locator should match with multiple web elements. If it is not matching, then it will return an empty array. So basically we have to pass the locator which is pointing to multiple elements here. If it is matching the single element, it will return an array of single element only. If it is not matching with any value, it will return an empty array. So page dot, this method in Playwright is another way to capture multiple elements. What it will do is, it will return array of element handles, and we can do direct interact with those DOM elements. Basically it will return an array of element handles. Now what exactly is element handle? Element handle in Playwright is a reference to a DOM element in the browser context. It provides a way to interact directly with element, such as clicking, typing, or extracting information. You don't have to remember all this stuff, just understand the basic. Basically it will return you the element handle. Element handle, we can consider it as a one locator object. We can say a locator object on which we can perform different actions such as clicking, typing, extracting information, etc. It represents a single element on the page, and it is typically retrieved using methods like page dot dollar for single element. For multiple elements, we can use page dot 2 times dollars, and in which we have to pass the locator. Or even we can convert locator into element handle as well. That I will show you in example also. So locator dot element handle, it will convert the locator to element handle. So now I will show you the same example, but this time using page dot dollars. So we are going to see the same example. So I'm just closing this. I'm just going to comment this test case so far, and let's use the same, but this time we will see in different approach. We are going to see a different approach now. So I'm just uncommenting this. So what changes we are going to do here? So in the previous approach we have used page dot locator. So now what we will do, I'm just going to remove this so far to avoid the confusion. So this is our basic syntax. Page dot go to, this web page will be launched, it will be opened. Then again constant of elements, await page dot, instead of locator method we can also use 2 times dollar symbol. Now what this will do is, in this we have to pass the same locator again, which is pointing to multiple web elements. It will return this element. So elements is a array which will contain web handles, element handles. It will give you the array of element handles, and on those array we can again directly use iterations now by using for loop. This time we can use for loop like this as well. So I will show you. We can simply use for one constant, let's say element of these elements. So I am going to capture single element in every iteration from all these elements. If you see, this is elements and this is a single element. We can use any text. This is just a syntax. You can use any variable here. So any constant here. So I'm using element of elements, and inside this, from every element, again we want to get text content. So from every element text content we are going to capture, and that we are going to store it as, let's say, constant mobile underscore name equals to await element dot text content. So it will capture the text content from this element. So in every iteration, the first iteration, 0th, after that first, second. So it is basically an array. So elements is an array of web handles, and from this array we are iterating from all the elements. So 0th element, first element, second element, third, and so on. So there can be a n number of elements which are present. As depending on the number of those elements present in the array, it will iterate through all those elements. And we are capturing the text content by using this text content method. It will capture the text of those element, that is basically we are storing in mobile name. And again we can simply print those. So I am just going to use console.log mobile name. So it will print the value of mobile name. So now let's execute this. So this is also again another approach. We can use any approach. We can use previous approach as well, or you can simply use this approach as well. So this is the second approach by using, let me just write it down here. So in this approach we have used page dot $, in which we are passing locator. So it will also capture, this locator is pointing to multiple web elements, and we are storing those in, and it is returning one array of element handles. Now let's save this file and let's execute this file to see whether it's correct or not. So let's execute this file. There is some mistake, I think. Let me just check it out. Okay, so this is something incorrect. Let's save this file. And now executing the test case. It is launching the browser. And it is printing the name of all the mobile phones. If you see, all the name of 5 mobile phones are captured and printed in our console. So this approach is also working now. So this is how we can capture multiple web elements. So this time what we have done, we have used page dot $signs, 2 times $signs, and in this we have to pass the locator which is pointing to multiple web elements. It will return array of element handles, and then we are using for loop in which we are doing iteration. So for every element we are capturing the text content and we are printing it here. So this is the approach 2 which we have just seen. And in Playwright, now you must have gotten doubt that there are 2 approaches. First one by using locator method, and second one by using element handles array. The difference between locator and element handle can explain why you are unable to iterate through a locator even when it points to multiple elements. So if you see, in the first approach we have to use for loop with, if you see in the first example we have used for loop with these statements, but we cannot use like this. So if you see, in element handles we have directly used this for loop, but this approach we cannot use in this first example with locator method. Why we should not able to use that is, a locator represents a lazy selector and it provides methods to interact with elements dynamically. It does not fetch elements immediately. Instead, it finds them when action is performed. Example, click or text content. A locator pointing to multiple elements is single object that dynamically interact with those elements. When you use .locator method, though it contains multiple elements, but it is still a single object. It is not an array. It is just a single object, and it dynamically interact with those elements. So that's why we are not directly use the second for loop which we have used for element handles. You cannot directly iterate over a locator. That's why we are directly iteration is not possible, but we can use its method like nth index or count to interact with specific instances. So that's why if you see here in first approach we have used dot nth method in which we are passing number in this iteration, because that's a single object. That's why we have to use that approach in which we have to use nth index or we have to use count to interact with specific instances. A locator does not expose multiple elements directly as an iterable collection. So it is not exposing directly as an iterable collection. Instead, it provides the ability to work with elements dynamically one at a time. So what we are doing in first approach is we are using a single locator every time in each iteration, and we are getting the text content for from those element. So that's why we have to use .nth here, because it's a locator. But in element handles, it directly returns you array of element handle. That's why we are able to use this for loop. Element handle is a specific instance of an element in the DOM at the moment it was fetched. And if you have multiple elements, you will have to fetch and iterate over their element handle objects individually. So in second approach, we are directly iterating through element handles object, because when you use this page dot 2 times dollars in which you are passing the locator, it will give you elements array which contains element handles. It can be a single or it can be a multiple, and depending on multiple or single, we are simply iterating through objects directly. We are fetching the text content and we are printing the text content, that is mobile name in our case. So you can use any of those approach. And also if you want to convert this locator, so what I will do is I'm just going to comment this for a time being. So we can also use by using locator also. If you want to use this approach, if you want to use this approach with locators, then also we can do that. So I'm just copying it. Let me just show you. So now what I will do, I'm just pasting it again. Let's uncomment it. So this is our approach one which we have seen previously. But now here if you see, I don't want to use this for loop. I want to also directly iterate through, just like we have done for element handles. That also we can do. So for that, what we have to do, when we are capturing these elements by using locator, we can convert those to element handles. We just have to use dot element handles method. It will convert it to element handles. So this is again now array of element handles. And now instead of this for loop, we can simply use like this also. So now you don't have to use the nth index, etc. What you can do, we can directly use like this constant, let's say elements or element of these elements. We can simply get await element dot text content, and we are going to print this name of the mobile. So we are again use it simply like element handles. We just have to use dot element handles after this locator. So now we can use this type of for loop as well. So let me execute this file. So let's execute this file. It will launch the browser. It is launching the browser. It will open the web page. Okay, so small mistake we have done is we should remove this count wala thing. We don't need this count thing now because that is an array object. So let me save this file and let's execute this again. So it is launching the browser. It will open the browser. It will open the web page. It will capture the name and it will print the name. One case is passed. So if you see the output now, in this again all the name of 5 mobile phones are captured here. So this is how we can work with multiple web element scenarios. Whenever you want to capture the multiple web element scenarios, we can use this approach. So I hope you have understood this. So let's revise one more time. We have already seen all the pretty couple of examples for the same cases. Right, so this is how we can work with multiple web elements in Playwright. If you want to use first approach, that is using locator method, we have used by using locator method where we are using page.locator, in which we have to pass the XPath which is pointing to multiple web elements that we are storing in this product elements now. And then we have to use for loop, in which we have to use nth index and we have to iterate through all the elements and capture the text content from those. This is the first approach. And second approach is by using page dot 2 times dollar symbol. This will basically give you array of element handles. It will return the array of element handles and we can directly iterate through those array elements and we can fetch the text content and we can print it on our console. So thank you for watching this video. In coming session, we will see next topic, that is, so far we have seen all these 4 type of locator strategies. In Playwright, we also have some built-in locators. In Playwright, we also have built-in locators that we are going to see in our next session. So thank you again.